Hello, dear listener. Welcome to another quiet night with sleepy facts, where the world slows down, the thoughts soften, and the universe opens gently like a dim lantern in the dark. You're safe here, wrapped in calm, held in stillness, drifting into a soft place where learning becomes a lullaby. So settle in, let your breath lengthen, and allow tonight's story to unfold like a dream. Imagine yourself standing beneath a vast night sky, the air cool and unmoving, the stars scattered above you like tiny echoes of distant fires. At first, the world feels familiar, solid beneath your feet, wide in every direction. But as the quiet deepens, something begins to shift. The horizon grows lighter at the edges, as though the earth itself is exhaling. The landscape softens, and the stars pull you upward, gently, weightlessly, letting you drift above your home as if you're remembering a dream you once had long ago. From this soft height, you begin to sense how everything you've ever known fits into something larger. How the oceans and mountains and cities below gather into a single shimmering blue sphere, and how that sphere begins to shrink as the universe reveals its true immense scale. Not suddenly, not with shock or urgency, but slowly, the way dawn reveals the world a little at a time. Tonight we drift with that same quiet patience into the deeper layers of the cosmos, following the pale blue memory of Earth as it becomes smaller and smaller until it seems to dissolve into the softness of space. So let yourself rise a little higher, as though supported by a warm current of air, high enough to see the gentle curve of Earth appearing beneath you. It is wide and glowing, brushed with swirling clouds and deep oceans, a world that feels enormous when you are standing upon it. A world where mountains tower, where deserts stretch in quiet golden sheets, where the seas roll endlessly against their shores. From here, you can almost still feel how vast it once seemed, how long it takes to cross it, how much life it holds, how many stories, how many breaths. But as you drift farther into the quiet dark, that sense of size begins to melt away. Earth becomes more like a delicate ornament suspended in a dim room, bright but small, and the moon appears nearby, pale and silent, circling faithfully. You notice the emptiness between them, far more space than their closeness in photographs ever suggests. A gap wide enough to line up 30 Earths, side by side, a gulf so spacious that silence seems to gather there like a soft fog, and you begin to see the first truth. The universe whispers, even our closest companions drift across vast oceans of nothingness. The moon, steady and loyal, rises and falls across Earth's skies, shaping tides, guiding ancient rhythms, stabilizing the globe's gentle tilt. Without meaning to, it protects the conditions that allow our oceans to breathe and our climates to stay steady. Yet here, from this floating vantage, you feel how small both worlds truly are, two specks moving together through an endless night. Then the light shifts and something far more brilliant swells across the darkness. Not sudden or harsh, but like a warm sunrise beginning at the edge of your vision. The sun emerges immense and fiery, glowing, with a steadiness that feels older than memory itself. Compared to it, Earth is little more than a shimmering seed, a fragile mote suspended at just the right distance for life to bloom. You float closer in thought, feeling the scale without touching it. The sun is so large that more than 1,000,000 Earths could fit inside it, wrapped layer upon layer like tiny beads in a hollow sphere. Its heat is born deep within, where hydrogen is pressed together with unimaginable force, transforming into light that has traveled for thousands of years through the sun's layers, before finally spilling outward into space and across the quiet face of Earth. Every moment of warmth you have ever felt is the result of a journey that began long before any human existed. Every dawn, every reflection on the sea, every gentle patch of sunlight on your skin, all of it comes from that distant furnace so much larger than our little world that comparison almost dissolves. Yet, even this star enormous, brilliant sustaining is only one of billions scattered across our galaxy. You drift farther following the gentle pull of perspective as the planets begin to appear like small shimmering beads circling their shared star. Mercury scorched and trembling in its closeness. Venus glowing beneath a dense and toxic veil. Mars cold and silent, still holding the faint fingerprints of ancient rivers. Then the giants, Jupiter swirling in deep bands of ochre and cream, Saturn ringed with icy dust so thin and delicate that it looks like a whispered thought drifting around the planet. Each world has its own quiet story, a rhythm of storms and seasons, a memory of formation, long before Earth had cooled enough for oceans to form. And beside each one, the moon you know so well seems almost large by comparison. Many moons are no more than shards of stone drifting through an ancient gravitational dance. Others, like Europa or Enceladus, hide oceans beneath their frozen skins, waiting in silence, carrying secrets we have not yet touched. As you drift outward, the planets begin to gather into a single impression, a solar family, small but intricate, drifting through a gulf of darkness. And then the sun itself begins to shrink, changing from a blazing disk to a bright star, then to a shining bead, and eventually into one more point of light among countless others. It is here that the dream deepens. Here, as you watch the sun become just another spark in a swirling ocean of stars, you begin to truly feel Earth becoming almost nothing at all, too small to see, too faint to imagine from this distance. You float through quiet star fields where each distant sun glimmers like a memory of fire. Some are enormous red giants swollen with age. Some are tiny, dim dwarves, steady and patient, burning slowly for trillions of years. And around many of them, unseen planets silently turn worlds we will never visit, worlds we may never discover, worlds that may hold oceans, atmospheres, storms, or silence. You drift among them like a traveler moving through a dream, and all the while, the place you call home grows smaller behind you until it is no larger than a forgotten breath. The Milky Way arrives not as an object, but as a feeling, a soft silver river stretching across blackness, filled with hundreds of billions of stars. You sense its spiral arms curling, gently, luminous and ancient, each one a cradle of countless suns. Somewhere among those arms, your own sun quietly circles the galactic center, taking hundreds of millions of years to complete a single orbit. And Earth travels with it like a tiny passenger, smaller than a grain of dust in a vast spinning wheel. You drift above this river of light as though floating above a glowing spiral shell, each arm shimmering with starbirth and stardust. And the true scale begins to take shape. If the galaxy were 100 feet wide, the solar system would be thinner than a strand of hair, nearly impossible to see. Earth would not even register, far too small, far too faint. Yet, despite the smallness, something extraordinary glows within that invisible dot. Life, awareness, memory, curiosity, all the delicate things that give the universe a way to know itself. You drift along the quiet outer halo of the galaxy, sensing ancient star clusters glowing like embers at the rim of a great cosmic campfire. You feel the depth of time stretching through them, millions upon millions of years, a span so long it begins to feel dreamlike. And still, Earth remains behind you, vanishing into the swirling glow, still carrying the only spark of life we have ever confirmed. As you float outward, the galaxy itself shrinks until it becomes a soft whirlpool of light. Then a shimmering mote among clusters of other galaxies. And then one piece of a structure far greater than imagination, a web of filaments and voids stretching across hundreds of millions of light years. Earth has disappeared entirely by now, even as a concept. And yet, the memory of it, that small blue lantern glowing in the silent dark, lingers gently in your thoughts. The great cosmic web unfolds around you like a dreamscape, woven from threads of silver and shadow. Galaxies gather along these filaments, the way morning dew gathers along the strands of a quiet spiderweb, each point glimmering with countless suns. Between them stretch vast, near-empty voids, spaces so immense that even entire galaxy clusters appear lonely within them. And in this silent architecture of the universe, the Milky Way becomes just one delicate bead drifting along its filament, following currents older than imagination. You drift gently through this structure as though floating through a cathedral built not from stone but from faint light and infinite distance. Somewhere deep within one of these glowing threads lies the home you once knew. A small swirl of stars suspended in a cosmic river. But from here, even that swirl has become almost indistinguishable, blending into the larger pattern like a brushstroke in an endless painting. As you drift farther, space begins to soften around you, the darkness settling like velvet against your thoughts. The galaxies become more numerous, more diffuse, until the distinctions between them blur. And you begin to sense the immensity of the observable universe. A sphere so wide that light itself, traveling at the fastest speed nature allows, has been journeying across it for almost 14 billion years. This universe, the one you can see, stretches nearly 100 billion light years from one side to the other. You float through it as though inside a vast, glowing bubble, watching galaxy clusters drift like lanterns in distant fog. Some clusters are dense and bright cities of stars gathered tightly together. Others are faint, scattered barely more than hints in the darkness. Yet Earth, that small blue world where oceans roll and forests breathe, is now so far behind you that it has slipped below every threshold of sight, below every meaningful scale. Even the Milky Way itself seems fragile and tiny, faint spiral drifting in the middle distance of a dream. And still, you drift outward. The quiet deepens as you pass through regions where galaxies form immense walls and chains, cosmic structures stretching across billions of light years. Between them lie the great voids, dark lakes of almost nothingness, where only a few lonely galaxies glow in otherwise perfect black. If you could stand in the heart of one of these voids and look outward, the universe would seem strangely hollow, the nearest clusters faint and distant, as if the cosmos were pulling away from you on all sides. Yet, even this emptiness holds its own softness, a kind of peaceful quiet, ancient and unbroken. Slowly, the edges of the observable universe draw near, not as a boundary you can touch, but as a fading of light, a thinning of the distant galaxies until they dissolve into the faintest shimmer at the horizon of space-time. Beyond that horizon lies something you cannot see, regions where light has not yet had time to reach you, places that remain forever hidden from view. And somewhere inside all this ungraspable vastness, Earth continues, circling its ordinary star, unaware of how small it truly is. For a moment, the dream allows you to turn your thoughts back toward that tiny world. You remember the oceans shimmering blue and full of life. You remember the hum of cities, the quiet of forests, the warmth of sunlight on stone. All of it happening on a sphere that from this distance does not even exist as a speck. Yet it is on that speck, on that nearly invisible island, floating in cosmic night, that something miraculous happened. Life arose. Awareness flickered awake. A tiny world developed eyes to look outward and wonder where it belonged. As you drift through the universe, you can almost feel that awareness glowing like a faint blue ember in the dark. The universe looking back upon itself through the minds of beings who evolved on a world too small to measure. The dream gently turns your attention now to scale not in numbers or charts, but in the way the universe invites you to feel its immensity. If the entire observable universe were compressed down to the size of Earth, the Milky Way would shrink to less than a grain of sand, and Earth itself would become smaller than a particle in the air. If the Milky Way were the size of a single coin, the Virgo supercluster home to thousands of galaxies would be as large as a sprawling city. And Earth, once again, would be far too small to see. The more you drift, the more you feel how size loses meaning in this dream. The scales become so vast that analogies crumble like soft sand. beneath a wave. The universe resists being imagined even as it surrounds you on all sides with its quiet, star-filled breath. But there is something comforting in that. A softness in knowing that smallness is not insignificance. That even the faintest spark can carry meaning if life has touched it. And so your drifting continues, not in haste, but with the gentle pace of night falling over a quiet landscape. You move past clusters where galaxies spin in slow dances, bound together by unseen threads of gravity. Some of those galaxies collide, merging in slow motion over millions of years, their stars passing harmlessly through each other like ghosts made of fire and silence. In other places, supermassive black holes anchor the hearts of galaxies, pulling in gas and dust, shaping the motion of stars with invisible power. You drift through these scenes the way you might drift through a memory, sensing their vastness, without needing to grasp every detail. The dream does not hurry. The stars do not hurry. They have been here long before Earth existed, and they will remain long after Earth is gone. In this quiet, your thoughts return again to that pale blue dot, not to diminish it, but to feel its rarity. Earth may be small, vanishingly, so yet it holds oceans where sunlight dances, forests where wind hums through leaves, creatures that breathe and grow and feel. It holds human beings who look upward and wonder about galaxies they will never touch. In all the darkness you pass through life remains the most delicate and astonishing thing of all. And the universe, despite its unimaginable expanse, has allowed at least one world to bloom with thought, one world to awaken, one world to ask, in the soft language of dreams and science, where do we belong? You drift farther still, watching the universe stretch into patterns that feel almost like living veins, carrying galaxies along currents of gravity. The cosmic web pulses with age, with slowness, with a deep rhythm that seems to hum under everything. And through that rhythm, you sense the outline of Earth's place, not as a point, but as a whisper, a gentle note in a symphony too vast to ever be played again in the same way. Life itself becomes the miracle, the improbable, fragile bloom on a world that disappeared from sight ages ago in this dream. And so you drift on, letting that thought settle into your breath like a quiet reassurance. The universe is vast, Earth is tiny, but something extraordinary has happened there, and the dream carries you deeper into that truth, as softly as a slow tide brushing the shore. The dream carries you onward deeper into the quiet reach of the cosmos, as though the universe itself is breathing slowly around you. The filaments of the cosmic web begin to dim behind you, softening into faint strands of silver until they feel less like structures and more like distant memories. The galaxies, once sharp and luminous, now float in your awareness like lanterns, half submerged in mist, their details blurred into gentle halos of light. And in this softened expanse, a feeling begins to rise, not of being lost, but of drifting through something ancient and patient, something that has existed far longer than any world or creature that might try to understand it. The universe reveals its immensity, not with force, but with quiet persistence, allowing your sense of scale to dissolve until even imagination begins to stretch thin. You travel now through the outskirts of galaxy clusters, drifting past giants made of hundreds or thousands of galaxies. Some form swirling chaotic gatherings. Others sit silently in the gravitational fields of unseen mass. You sense the vast cluster known as Virgo. Somewhere in the distance, a beautiful storm of light containing thousands upon thousands of galaxies, all held together in a shared gravitational embrace. If you could pause here and gaze back toward the Milky Way, it would appear as no more than a faint blur hidden among countless others, a small spiral glowing gently in a sea of structures far grander than itself. Earth, already invisible long ago, now feels less like a point and more like a memory tucked within an unreachable past. Gravity draws your path gently along one of the filaments that connect these clusters, like a river guiding driftwood. Along the way, you pass immense walls of galaxies, structures stretching for hundreds of millions of light years. They are thin, broad sheets of starlight shimmering like curtains, drifting in a cosmic wind. Between these glowing walls lie the great voids regions so empty that they seem to swallow sound itself. A void may span 1 billion light years across, yet contain only a scattering of faint galaxies, each shining alone in a darkness deeper than shadow. If you could stand within the center of such a void, the sky would look strangely hollow. The nearest bright galaxies so distant that they appear like grains of dust scattered at the edge of sight. There is a quiet beauty in this emptiness, a reminder that the universe is shaped as much by what is not there as by what is. Darkness is not an absence, but a space where possibilities drift unhurried and unformed. And still, somewhere, unimaginable distances behind you, Earth moves in its delicate orbit, turning through seasons, hosting forests and oceans, and living hearts that will never sense the voids or the walls or the cosmic filaments holding galaxies in their quiet embrace. Your drifting carries you beyond the structures we can see toward the soft horizon of the observable universe. The galaxies at this boundary shine faintly, their light stretched thin by the expansion of space. Some of these galaxies emitted their light billions of years before Earth formed. Others have already moved far beyond the point where their light could ever reach you again. The edge is not a wall, but a kind of fading, a dimming into silence, like the final notes of a lullaby dissolving into sleep. Beyond this horizon lies the unobservable universe, an expanse far larger than anything your drifting has touched. There may be countless more galaxies, clusters, superclusters, perhaps infinite worlds, infinite stars, infinite possibilities. But their light has not reached you and may never reach you, no matter how long you drift. Somewhere in this dream, a thought settles like soft dust on your shoulders. The universe you can see is vast. The universe beyond sight may be boundless. And Earth is only one world in that immense unseen ocean. Slowly, your drifting curves back toward thoughts of that small world, not to return, but to remember. You recall the pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam captured long ago by a tiny spacecraft drifting toward the edge of the solar system. A single pixel containing all the love and longing and triumph and grief that humanity has ever known. Every child's laughter, every whispered conversation, every forested hill and quiet river, every fragile hope, all of it rested on that one dot so small that it could vanish behind a mote of dust on the camera's lens. And yet, from that dot came beings capable of sending a messenger into the dark, capable of turning its camera around, capable of wondering deeply enough to care what a distant photograph might reveal. As you drift through the dream, you feel the tenderness of this realization. Earth is small, almost impossibly small. But smallness does not diminish brightness. In a universe filled with stars and storms and galaxies stretching across unimaginable distances, life remains the rarest and most delicate thing. And Earth, that hidden invisible ember, holds the only confirmed spark. You move now through a part of the dream where time stretches as gently as space. Stars live and die by rhythms that feel like the beating of a slow, distant heart. red giants bloom and fade. Supernovae light the dark in brilliant flashes before dissolving into new clouds of dust. Black holes wait in silence, shaping the paths of nearby stars with the quiet certainty of gravity. And through all this, Earth remains unique in your memory, not because of size, but because of life. Even the smallest galaxy contains more stars than you could ever count. Yet, no star, no planet, no nebula is known to hold the fragile complexity of thought, emotion, or wonder. The dream wraps itself gently around this truth. The universe is vast beyond imagination. Earth is tiny beyond description. And yet, the tiny world shines with the subtle glow of consciousness, a glow that stretches far beyond its size. You drift farther still, letting the universe open around you like a slow blooming flower, its petals made of galaxies and dark matter and light that has traveled for billions of years. Space grows quiet again, the silence deeper than before, as though the dream is pausing to let you breathe. And in this breath, you feel something soft and steady, a sense that significance is not measured in miles or mass or brightness, but in the delicate presence of life upon a world that disappears from view long before the dream ends. The dream carries you onward, as though you are gliding through a tide that has no shore, a current woven from darkness and starlight. Patterns of faint galaxies drift past like constellations inside a lantern, each one holding billions of suns, yet each feeling gentle and far away. The universe stretches around you with patient enormity, and your movement through it becomes quieter, softer, as though space itself is cushioning your thoughts. Somewhere in this vastness, a memory of Earth still flickers in the background, not as a visible point anymore, but as a feeling, a warmth, a small and steady glow. It travels with you like the echo of a lullaby, even as you drift farther than any light from Earth has ever touched. Now, the stars begin to thin, and the dream shifts toward the deeper architecture of time. You sense the long ages the universe has lived through, epochs unfolding like slow cosmic breaths. Stars forming, shining, fading, galaxies colliding and reshaping, clusters pulling at one another across millennia. The universe has been sculpted by gravity, by expansion, by silence, by the quiet certainty of physical laws that hum beneath everything. As you drift through these depths of time, the sun appears again in your thoughts, not as the blazing disk you once saw from Earth, but as a young star forming in a cloud of gas billions of years ago. You see the solar nebula swirling like a luminous whirlpool dust, and ice gathering into spirals, orbiting, clumping, colliding. Within this cloud, the planets begin to form spheres of rock and gas growing slowly from dust grains no larger than motes floating in a sunbeam. You watch Earth take shape, molten and glowing, bombarded by comets and asteroids, its surface shifting and cracking like the skin of a cooling ember. Water arrives in shimmering waves from icy visitors, or from deep within the planet itself, spreading across the young globe until oceans form, clouds rise, rain falls, the crust hardens, lightning flashes across steaming seas. And somewhere within that churning chemistry, the first spark of life flickers into being, fragile, microscopic, almost inconceivably simple. You drift closer to this moment, sensing its delicacy. The early Earth is still a wild place, but life takes hold with quiet persistence. Over millions of years, it spreads, divides, evolves. Entire worlds of single-celled organisms fill the oceans, each one tiny beyond imagination, yet forming the foundation of everything that will come later. These creatures breathe, split, feed, adapt. They survive cataclysms. They change the atmosphere. They shape the very conditions that allow future life to bloom. You float above ancient seas when new forms begin to emerge. Soft-bodied creatures gliding through water plants, reaching upward with tender green fronds. Shells forming eyes, evolving fish, darting through reefs that ripple with color. Life expands across continents, spreads into forests, climbs onto land, grows wings, grows roots, grows intentions. The dream brushes through these ages like a soft breeze, turning the pages of a book. Dinosaurs rise and thunder across the land, immense and elegant. They flourish for more than 150 million years, then vanish in a single world-shaking moment. The earth grows quiet again. Then slowly, new forms arise. Mammals, small and quick, growing into larger shapes, gaining new abilities, finding niches left empty by ancient giants. Eventually, humans appear fragile, curious, standing upright beneath a sky they do not yet understand. They learn to build fires, to shape tools, to hunt, to paint on stone walls. They form languages, families, communities. They grow crops and cities. They raise monuments to the night sky without knowing how small their world truly is. And then, only an instant ago in cosmic time, humans lift their eyes to the heavens and begin to measure the stars. They build telescopes. They send instruments into orbit. They launch spacecraft that drift beyond their home world, slowly leaving the sun's warmth behind. One of those messengers, Voyager 1, turns back to capture a photograph of Earth from billions of miles away. And in that image, Earth appears not as a planet, not as a sphere, not even as a shape, but as a single pale blue pixel suspended in a beam of scattered sunlight. You float gently beside that image, now seeing Earth as Voyager saw it, a tiny glimmer in the immense dark. And in that glimmer lies every continent, every ocean, every person, every memory, every heartbeat. The dream asks you to hold this vision softly, without fear, without sadness, just as a truth of scale, a reminder of perspective. From here, Earth seems impossibly small. Yet it remains the only place in all the cosmos where life is known to flourish. The only world where consciousness has risen to contemplate the universe that surrounds it. The only point of light in this vast darkness that carries thoughts, emotions, stories, dreams. You drift through this understanding like a slow current, letting it settle gently into your mind. Earth's size does not limit its wonder. If anything, its smallness makes its beauty more fragile, more miraculous, more precious. And as you drift onward through the dream, you sense the long future that stretches ahead of Earth. The sun will warm slowly, brightening with age. In 1 billion years, Earth's oceans will begin to evaporate beneath the increasing heat. Life will retreat, then fade, then vanish. Eventually, the sun will swell into a red giant, its outer layers reaching toward Earth, perhaps engulfing it entirely, perhaps scorching it into a lifeless rock, before shrinking back into a quiet white dwarf. Far beyond that, the galaxy will merge with Andromeda, forming a new, immense elliptical galaxy, where the stars of two ancient spirals will mingle. The solar system may survive that encounter, or it may be cast outward into intergalactic space, like a leaf in a cosmic storm. But by then, Earth will have long ceased to harbor oceans or forests or life. Yet the dream does not dwell on this future with sorrow. Instead, it holds these facts with softness as part of the gentle rhythm of cosmic time. Worlds come and go. Stars are born and die. The universe shifts and expands, endlessly unfolding. The smallness of Earth does not diminish its meaning, it enhances it. Life arose in a fleeting oasis within a cosmos mostly empty and cold. Consciousness blossomed in a tiny window of warmth and stability. And in that brief moment, beings emerged who could ask questions, who could imagine the universe, who could create art and music and kindness. The dream returns you to this truth again and again, as though smoothing it into your thoughts with slow, reassuring hands. Earth is tiny but extraordinary, small but full of wonder, invisible from almost anywhere in the cosmos, yet luminous in the story of existence. As you drift deeper, this feeling becomes an anchor, soft, steady, and warm, guiding you through the next quiet stretch of the universe. The dream carries you onward, as though the universe has shifted from a sweeping panorama into a softer, more intimate tapestry. Light gathers around you in gentle strands, not bright, not sharp, but like moonlit silk drifting through warm water. The great structures of galaxies and clusters still exist somewhere behind you, yet their immensity now feels quiet, as though distance has softened them into memory. Here in this calmer region of the dream, time seems to slow even further. You feel as though you are drifting, not just through space, but through the unfolding of thought itself. The universe contemplating its own vastness through your quiet awareness. You sense the sun again, not as a blazing star this time, but as a faint echo, a distant warmth glowing softly in the dark. Around it, the planets continue their endless arcs, each one holding its own quiet story. Mercury circles swiftly close to the sun's heat, its surface battered silent and shimmering beneath the intensity of endless daylight. Venus glows beneath thick swirling clouds, a world once thought to be a paradise, now known as a furnace so hot that metals would melt upon its surface. Mars, cold and red and lonely, keeps its ancient secrets locked beneath dust and ice. You drift among these worlds as though gliding past the memories of old friends, familiar yet distant, each holding mysteries that remain untouched by human footsteps. And the giants, they loom gently in the dream, not intimidating, but awe-inspiring. Jupiter, with its deep bands, its vast storms circling for centuries. Saturn, with rings delicate as frost. Uranus and Neptune, turning slowly in the far reaches of sunlight. These worlds are enormous compared to Earth, so enormous that the tiny blue dot seems almost fragile beside them. Yet, in the dream, the comparison is not meant to diminish Earth, but to remind you how varied, how rich, how layered the solar system truly is. And still life has only bloomed on one world. You drift closer to the gas giants, now sensing the quiet dreams held in their swirling atmospheres. Jupiter's storms spin endlessly, the great red spot turning like a slow, silent eye. Lightning flashes deep within its clouds, illuminating depths humans have never seen. Saturn's rings shimmer like fine dust, caught in a beam of morning light, each particle glinting with icy stillness. Among these giants are their moons' worlds, that in another circumstance might have been planets of their own. Europa, with its hidden ocean beneath smooth, cracked ice. Enceladus, spraying plumes of water like snowy breath into the vacuum. Titan, with its methane lakes, quietly mirroring dim sunlight. Ganymede and Callisto, ancient and cratered, holding secrets in their frozen crusts. You drift over Europa's icy plains, sensing the ocean beneath a vast dark sea, warmed by the moon's internal tides, perhaps stirring with chemistry, perhaps sheltering unknown forms of life. It is a distant, silent hope glowing faintly in the dream's soft darkness. And then you drift farther outward, past the boundaries of the known worlds, past Neptune's cold winds and Triton's mysterious backward orbit, past the dwarf planets scattered in the Kuiper Belt Pluto with its pale heart-shaped plane, Eris shining faintly, Makemake and Haumea spinning in icy solitude. You drift beyond even these lonely wanderers into the dark region, where sunlight becomes no more than a whisper. Somewhere far ahead lies the Oort cloud, a vast spherical shell of icy objects surrounding the solar system. It stretches so far that any one of these frozen bodies completes a single orbit only once every millions or even billions of years. Here, comets sleep in silence until gravity brushes them awake, sending them inward on long journeys toward the sun. You float among these icy remnants, sensing their quiet patience. Each one is a frozen memory of the solar system's birth, untouched for eons. Their orbits form a vast, invisible sphere, enclosing everything humanity has ever known, a boundary not of walls, but of solitude. From this distance, the solar system feels like a single glimmer suspended in darkness. The sun is no larger than a bright star. The planets vanish. Earth is no longer even a concept of size. It is simply too small to register. And yet, Earth's story remains the one that matters most in this dream. You drift farther still, sensing the vast gulf between stars. It is not a void of nothingness, but a quiet ocean, its stillness stretching for light years. Here and there, a faint star glimmers Proxima Centauri. The closest to the sun burns dimly in the distance. A small red dwarf, cool and quiet, orbited by planets that may never know the warmth required for life. You drift through that system gently, its tiny star pulsing faintly, its planets circling in slow, careful arcs. The night around you grows deeper, yet softer. You sense countless other stars, some enormous, blazing blue and brilliant, others tiny, cool red and long-lived. Red dwarfs, the most common stars in the galaxy, glow like embers scattered across the dark. Giants loom like lanterns burning out their last fuel. And far-off supergiants tower in brightness, their enormous sizes dwarfing the sun until it seems as small as Earth once did. Among these titanic stars, you drift past Betelgeuse, a red supergiant, swollen to such a size that if it were placed where the sun is, Earth would be swallowed within its vast, fiery body. You drift over the imagined surface of this massive star, sensing the churning plasma, the slow pulsing breath of a star nearing the end of its life. And farther still, there are stars so large that they defy gentle comparison, hypergiants hundreds or thousands of times the sun's diameter, luminous, unstable, magnificent. In their presence, Earth's size becomes not just small, but almost conceptual, like a thought whispered into a storm. Yet, in all this immense celestial landscape, you are reminded again that Earth holds something. None of these giant stars possess life-thought awareness. You drift now into regions where stars have died and left behind remnants more compact and more strange than anything else in the universe. White dwarfs, small and dim, cooling slowly over billions of years. Neutron stars, tiny but unimaginably dense, spinning rapidly, sometimes flashing beams of radiation into the dark like cosmic lighthouses. And black holes, regions where gravity becomes so strong that space folds inward on itself, pulling light and time along with it. You sense the immense presence of a black hole, not as a threat, but as a quiet curve in the fabric of space. Around it, stars orbit in graceful ellipses, moving at incredible speeds. Gas swirls toward the event horizon, heating, glowing, whispering its last light before vanishing. Compared to these objects, Earth's mass seems irrelevant, insignificant in the scale of cosmic density. Yet, significance is not measured by mass or size or brightness. The universe does not value things in those terms. It simply exists, and within its vast canvases, Earth is the rare point where consciousness has bloomed. You drift on, carrying this truth lightly, letting it settle like soft snowfall. In this gentle stretch of the dream, you reflect on how small Earth is at every scale. Smaller than the sun, smaller than the Milky Way, smaller than a supercluster, smaller than a speck within the observable universe. And yet, it is the only place known where life has taken root and flourished. That smallness is not a flaw. It is what makes Earth precious. You drift over the galaxy once more, watching its spiral arms rotate in serene arcs. Each arm contains millions of stars, each with planets and potential, each shining quietly in the dark. And still among all these worlds, Earth remains the only known cradle of consciousness, a pale blue dot lost in cosmic night, yet glowing with the only voice the universe has ever given itself. As you float within this realization, the dream deepens, preparing to guide you into the final layers of understanding, the rare, delicate truth that arises from Earth's smallness and from the immense silence that surrounds it. The dream ushers you onward, letting the universe unfold like a gently dimming lantern. The stars thin again, and the feeling of drifting becomes softer than before, as if space itself has cushioned your path with layers of quiet, allowing each thought to settle gently, without hurry, without strain. You float through a region where distance begins to lose meaning. The galaxies you once saw as bright spirals now appear as faint, shimmering flecks. Time stretches into something fluid, and space becomes less a place to move through, and more a vast, peaceful stillness that surrounds you like a calm ocean. In this stillness, you begin to sense the architecture of the universe in a different way, not as clusters and filaments and voids, but as a single expansive presence humming quietly with the memory of creation. The faint echo of the Big Bang lingers here, spread thinly across every direction. The cosmic microwave background, a soft glow from the universe's earliest moments, still whispering faint warmth into the coldness of space. You drift through that faint glow, almost feeling the leftover heat from a time when the entire universe was young and bright and dense, long before stars were born, long before galaxies formed, long before Earth was even a future possibility. In that early fire, hydrogen and helium began to emerge, the simplest atoms forming the seeds of everything that would follow. You float through this memory of cosmic dawn, sensing the first stars flicker awake. They were enormous, far larger than the sun, burning brilliantly, living, briefly scattering heavier elements into space when they collapsed. From those elements, later stars formed, and planets and oceans, and eventually life. You drift through that ancient lineage like a quiet thread pulled through the fabric of existence. From the ashes of ancient stars came the carbon in your cells, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones. Every part of you was forged in a star's heart, carried through space, gathered into clouds, born again in younger suns. Even Earth was shaped from the remnants of dying stars, a world made from stardust, warmed by a star, home to creatures who would eventually look upward and realize what they were made of. You drift gently over this truth, letting it settle in your awareness like a soft, distant echo. We are small, but we are ancient. We are brief, but we are made of things older than time as we know it. We are tiny, but we are connected to everything. In this quiet state, the universe begins to reveal a different kind of scale, not measured in miles or masses, but in relationships, in origins, in the delicate ways matter gathers and becomes alive. Earth is small, yes, but it is built from pieces of stars that exploded long before the sun existed. It carries in its oceans the memory of cosmic cycles in its soil, the minerals shaped by planetary collisions in its air, the breath of forests born from ancient sunlight. The dream lets you float down through this lineage, past stars that lived and died billions of years ago, past gas clouds that drifted for ages before forming new suns, past swirling nebulae where light scatters like the colors of dawn. You drift past the birthplace of the solar system, that glowing spinning nebula, and watch dust gather again, spiraling inward, building the foundation of Earth's continents, Earth's seas, Earth's future life. Now, the dream turns your gaze toward Earth once more. Not visually, for the planet is far too distant to see, but emotionally as something warm and familiar that glows within your thoughts. The solar system is a faint speck behind you. The galaxy is smaller than a coin from this distance. The observable universe is a quiet shell enclosing your drift. Yet, Earth, that pale blue dot, carries something none of these vast structures possess. The dream invites you to feel it closely. Now the fragile, improbable phenomenon of consciousness. It began as simple perception, the faint ability of early organisms to sense light temperature motion. Slowly, over millions of years, those senses sharpened. Eyes formed, ears formed. Nervous systems became more complex. Life began to not only perceive, but respond, and eventually to think. Thought itself, the spark behind awareness, is far more delicate than any galaxy. It arises from intricate networks of cells that communicate with tiny electrical signals, fragile, fleeting, needing warmth and protection to exist. And yet, it is this delicate spark that contemplates the immense, ancient universe surrounding it. You drift deeper into this gentle paradox, letting the universe feel both enormous and intimate at the same time. Earth's smallness becomes part of its wonder. From such a tiny place came beings who mapped the stars, who measured the speed of light, who discovered galaxies beyond their own, who detected the glowing remnants of the Big Bang, who built spacecraft that now drift quietly among the cold edges of the solar system. From that small world came curiosity, a phenomenon rarer than any element. You drift softly through a sense of gratitude for this planet, this fragile, delicate world that carries forests and oceans and life. A world where water flows freely, where sunlight warms the surface gently, where air forms a breathable blanket, where living creatures sing, migrate, grow, bloom. A world that exists within a narrow, precious range of temperatures and conditions. A thin thread in a universe filled mostly with cold, sterile silence. Earth's smallness does not diminish it. It protects it. It shapes it. It makes the existence of life possible. The dream widens again, letting you see not visually, but through feeling the larger structures that Earth belongs to. The solar system drifting around the sun. The sun drifting around the galactic center. The Milky Way drifting among clusters. The clusters drifting along the cosmic web's glowing threads. And beyond that, the universe expanding, stretching space itself outward, making distance grow with every passing moment. In all this vastness, Earth remains almost impossibly small. Yet, it is one of the few places where the universe has become aware of itself. A small world holding fragile minds, gazing at infinite night and whispering questions into the dark. You float gently through that awareness. No rush, no urgency. Just the slow, steady unfolding of a dream that stretches as wide as the cosmos, yet centers itself on a tiny world full of unseen beauty. As the dream deepens further, you drift toward the final understanding how Earth's vanishing smallness enhances its extraordinary role in the story of the universe. And so the dream carries you deeper into the quiet, where the vastness of everything begins to feel almost tender. The immense distances, the ancient light, the uncountable stars, all of it softens, as if the universe is dimming the lanterns one by one, helping your mind settle into a gentler rhythm. You drift through that hush, feeling the sweep of billions of years passing like a slow tide around you. Galaxies breathe, stars blossom and fade, clusters drift like lanterns on an endless sea. Yet where you float, everything feels calm, suspended, unmoving. The kind of stillness that seems impossible in a restless universe. And yet, here it is, wrapped around you like a warm night. In this stillness, something becomes clear in a way it never has before. Earth's smallness does not diminish it. It defines its wonder. A world so small, it vanishes against cosmic scales, and yet so rare that it carries forests, oceans, rivers, storms, continents, consciousness, questions, dreams. A world where sunlight filters through leaves, where oceans hold the memory of ancient life, where mountains rose from molten stone and cooled beneath a young sky, where creatures learned to breathe, to crawl, to wander, to build, to think, where minds emerged with the ability to imagine the very cosmos that created them. You float in the quiet realization that Earth is in its own quiet way a miracle, not because it is large or central, but because it is alive in a universe that is mostly dark, mostly cold, mostly empty. And in that life, something extraordinary has happened. Matter has learned to wonder. Atoms forged in old stars have learned to reflect on their origins. A planet too small to notice from most of the cosmos has produced beings who can map galaxies, trace cosmic history, and feel awe for things billions of light years away. You sense this without urgency, without effort, just a soft awareness, blooming like a faint light inside you. Earth may be a speck, a vanishing dot, a momentary warmth in an endless sea. But it is also a cradle, a spark, a lantern in the dark. The dream carries you gently across a final sweep of cosmic quiet, the subtle hum of background radiation, the faint trembling of space itself expanding, the almost silent motion of galaxies adrift in the dark. Everything feels slow, weightless, serene. Somewhere far behind you, Earth turns quietly in its orbit, wrapped in a thin shell of air, glowing with life under the light of an ordinary star. You cannot see it from here. It is much too small, but you can feel its presence warm and familiar, like a heartbeat echoing through the vast, cool night. And in that feeling, the the dream settles one final truth. Yes, the universe is enormous. Yes, Earth is tiny. But tiny things can hold extraordinary meaning. And this small world, this pale blue dot, carries everything that matters to us. Every thought, every memory, every love, every hope, every possibility. It is the only home we know, the only warm shore in an ocean of unimaginable size, the only place where consciousness has opened its eyes, at least, that we have found. And you, floating there within the dream of the universe, are part of its story. A brief, precious moment of awareness. A breath within a cosmic night. A spark of understanding carried by stardust. The dream softens now, letting the vastness fade into a gentle blur. The stars dim. The distances dissolve. Everything grows quieter, as if the universe itself is exhaling. And you are held in a peaceful reminder. You belong to a universe that is immense beyond imagining. You stand on a world that is small beyond belief. And yet, you carry within you something rare and luminous, a mind capable of wonder. Let that wonder rest now. Let the night hold you softly. Let the smallness of earth remind you how precious it is, how precious you are living upon it. How remarkable it is that consciousness has found its way into such a tiny corner of the cosmos. Breathe gently. Settle into the quiet. Let the vast universe dim around you until all that remains is the soft rhythm of a small planet turning peacefully in the dark. Good night.